Okay, so while we're waiting, can you hear me? Yeah. So while we're waiting for the last few folks to come in, I'll deal with any logistical questions. I'll tell you the number one question I've been asked so far about this class, and that is, I'm on the wait list, am I likely to get into the class? So as you haven't checked this morning, usually the class is oversubscribed. There's usually a significant wait list. Because of the nature of this class, that wait list typically gets worked through fairly quickly. So certainly if you're in the top 10 or so, there are actually two wait lists, one for EPS 20, one for LNS C20Y. So if you're in the top 10 of the wait list, I would say that there's a very good chance you'll get in the class. But of course, I have absolutely no control over this. You just get enrolled automatically as other people drop the class. Okay, so that was the number one question I've been being asked. Any other logistical questions about the class before we get started? We went through the logistics pretty quickly at the end of Thursday's lecture. All of that information, of course, is online. The lecture notes are online. Any questions? Wow. Okay. Does anybody know where the webcast is? On which website? It's not on my website. The webcast, the web capture that they do, they usually post it on webcasts.berkeley.edu, and they don't seem to have even listed the full 2014 semester. So usually this class is webcast. I said that they should webcast it, but I can find nothing about it. Okay, nobody has looked at this point. Anybody know? You can find anything either? Okay. But if anybody figures out where these things are posted, please let me know so I can let everybody else know. Okay? There was one question, there was one hand. Yeah. The question is, are exams curved? I don't really know what that means. Tell me what that means. Is there a bell curve? Well, I suspect. So, I'm not being purposely difficult here. I always get asked this question. When I plot up the distribution of grades, I'm sure it'll be a bell curve. But what are you actually asking? Okay, let me tell you what I think you're asking. If you're asking me whether 10% or some fixed number are going to get A's, the answer is no. So what will happen is at the end of the semester, I will plot up the distribution of people's grades, and I'll draw a dividing line based on sort of what the distribution looks like and what I think is a fair breaking point for A's, B's, and C's. All right? Any other questions? Okay, so let's jump into today's lecture. So today and Thursday is a combo lecture. We're essentially going to talk, I'm going to motivate the class. I guess I didn't say this on Thursday, but the first third of the class is really looking about lessons from earthquakes in the past. The middle third is about the science of earthquakes, and then the final third is what we can do to reduce the impacts of future earthquakes. So we're in the motivation stage. And what better way to motivate you all about this topic than to try and give you what is a very realistic sense of what it will mean if we have a magnitude 7 earthquake on the Hayward Fault, which, as you know, is about 300 feet that way. Okay? Now, I'm sure you've all seen the news stories, or at least I hope you've seen and looked at some of the news stories related to the Napa earthquake. We talked about this on Thursday briefly. There's two really important differences between the Napa earthquake and the scenario earthquake that we're going to start talking about today. The first is that the Napa earthquake was a magnitude 6.0 earthquake, not a 7.0 earthquake. And that means about 30 times less energy was released in the Napa earthquake than would be released in this scenario earthquake. Okay? And the second thing, of course, is that as lovely as Napa is, it's a pretty small town. The part of the Bay Area just north of San Pablo Bay, which was most heavily shaken by this earthquake, is largely a rural area. Napa happens to be the town that's very close, but it's a small town. If we have a magnitude 7 earthquake on the Hayward Fault, then of course that is going to affect all of the East Bay cities along the entire length of the East Bay. And so not only is it 30 times as much energy, there's probably orders of magnitude, in fact several orders of magnitude, more stuff that's going to be affected. People's homes, roads, utilities, all of the kind of things that we rely on for our normal daily lives. Okay? So this is always a challenge to try and understand what it means to have a significant earthquake. The Loma Prieta was not a significant earthquake, again, because it was 100 kilometers to the south of the Bay Area. Napa was not a significant earthquake because it was relatively small, and again, it was away from the Bay Area. So make sure you recognize those differences. Okay, so we're going to work our way through this scenario. This is my favorite quote on this topic. We have the choice between despair, hopelessness, and total extinction. Let us have the wisdom to choose correctly. Okay? And where that quote comes from is when you work through the scenario and you see what is going to happen, it's very easy to just throw your hands up in the air and say, you know what, this is just too much. I can't handle this. I don't know where to start. How are we going to reduce the impacts of these earthquakes? And that, of course, would be the total extinction option. Okay? So it's very important to understand the consequences and then start to pass out individual things that we can do to try and reduce the future impacts. And many of these things have been done. There's still a lot more work to be done, but that, of course, is what's going to be a common theme throughout the course of the class. So, is it possible to destroy a US city? I see some people nodding their heads. I see some people shaking their heads. Somebody want to comment? Yes? No? Why? Yeah.
I think it's possible economically, but not structurally.
So the comment was that it's possible economically, but not structurally. Other comments? Yeah. Right. So the question then becomes, what does it mean to destroy a city? And that's right. It doesn't necessarily mean to completely flatten every building in a city. But what I mean is to bring to an end what we consider to be our normal way of life, in this case, in the Bay Area. And what that means is that there's enough damage to infrastructure that most of us would leave. We would move away. We would know that we would have to move away for a number of months. And by the time we've moved somewhere else, and we've been there for a few months, and we've all started at the local colleges there, the universities that are in that region, started new jobs, you may well not move back. That's what we mean by destroying a US city. Absolutely, it's possible. Okay? It happened less than a decade ago with New Orleans, with Hurricane Katrina. This, of course, is not an earthquake. This is a hurricane. But a large portion of New Orleans was flooded by this hurricane. A very large fraction of the population moved away, and many of them have not returned. I believe the population of New Orleans is still less than 50% what the population of New Orleans was prior to the hurricane. So when we talk about destroying a US city, we mean ending life sort of as it is today in one of these cities, and absolutely this is possible. Okay? So the earthquake that we're going to, the scenario rather that we're going to talk about, what I'm going to show you largely comes from a study, it's about at least a decade old at this point actually, that was done by the EERI, the Earthquake Engineering Research Institute, which was to look at specifically what they thought would happen if we had a magnitude 7 earthquake on the Hayward Fault. Okay? And then there's a little bit of Mark Reisner, particularly towards the end, when we talk about the impacts that this earthquake would have on the water supply in California. That was your reading for today. The PDF of the section of this book that's the scenario is online. You can download it and you should read it. And what he says at the beginning of his scenario is what follows is pessimism that could be worse. And that's very appropriate. He lays out a really scary scenario. It's a much more scary scenario than what I'm going to talk about. And that's why he says it's a pessimistic scenario. But he's right that it's not necessarily the worst case scenario. We're talking about a magnitude 7 on the Hayward Fault. So it's an earthquake that ruptures this section of the Hayward Fault. Of course, we're right here, right now, pretty much on the fault on this map. Of course, you can have bigger earthquakes on the Hayward Fault. You can have, I think it's up to about a 7.5 if you rupture the Rogers Creek and the full Hayward Fault, so you can have a larger magnitude earthquake, so that would be a worse scenario. You can also, of course, have up to a magnitude 8 earthquakes on the San Andreas Fault that runs down here. So again, this scenario is not the worst case scenario, all right? This is kind of a middle-of-the-range scenario earthquake, and that's why I think that this is a good one for us to be thinking about. I'm going to be illustrating the scenario with some images and some data from the Loma Prieta earthquake. Of course, that was the last major damaging earthquake in the Bay Area. It was in 1989, and it was a magnitude 6.9 earthquake centered south of the Bay Area. On this map here, it was centered down here. That's why I say, while there was a lot of damage done up here, the earthquake was 100 kilometers away from that particular event. A little bit of Northridge. Northridge, of course, was the last major damaging earthquake in Southern California in 1994. And that earthquake, again, most of the shaking was beneath the Santa Susana Mountains. It was not beneath the San Fernando Valley. The damage that was done was beneath the San Fernando Valley. So again, this wasn't a particularly bad scenario. It wasn't the scenario that we're really thinking about. The best analogy to what we need to be thinking about is the Kobe 1995 earthquake. Okay, and the reason it's a good analogy is because it was a strike-slip fault, just like the Hayward Fault and the San Andreas Fault, and it was beneath a modern western city, the city of Kobe, Japan. Okay? That earthquake killed 6,000 people. All right? I'm going to show you lots of images from that earthquake to give you a sense. So this earthquake is the best analogy we have to what we need to be ready for here in California. All right, any questions? Yeah. The Kobe earthquake, now I'm blanking, was a 6.9. Somebody type Kobe into their browser for me. 7.1, actually, I think it was. I'm waiting. Thank you, 6.9. I was right the first time. 6.9. These were, the Northridge earthquake was a 6.7. The Loma Prieta, I forget who asked the question now. The Loma Prieta earthquake was 6.9 or 7.0. Okay, so these are all similar magnitude earthquakes. Any other questions? All right.
Downtown San Francisco in the background, and we zoom into Candlestick Park in the southeastern corner of the city. For the first time in 27 years, a World Series game will be played in Candlestick Park. The Battle of the Bay continues. As I'm Al Michaels, welcome to Game 3. It's been dominant open pitching, of course, in the first two games.
As Al Michaels and his colleagues in the broadcast booth review the baseball action that had led up to this third game of the World Series.
Back to Game 2, the score was 5-1, but there were two key plays early in that one as well.
You can see power lines are swaying.
So all of that footage comes from the Kobe earthquake, okay? I'm sorry, from the Loma Prieta earthquake here in Northern California. So this is from 1989. As you now know, there was the World Series, which was between the two baseball teams that are here in the Bay Area. Help me out, somebody. Absolutely. They were about to start playing one of their games, I don't even know which game, and which is when the earthquake started. And so that footage was actually the live broadcast. The beginning of this was the live broadcast of them just wrapping up or giving a summary of the games that, as you can see, I can't talk about sports, of the games that had occurred in the run-up to that World Series game. And so they were actually on live when the earthquake occurred, and you saw the effects of that. The clips, various clips that were compiled that people shot after the earthquake. Remember, this was 1989, okay? There were no video cameras on your cell phones, right? So we actually don't have very much footage at all of the earthquake compared to what we get today when there's an earthquake. But it gives you a sense of the kind of effects that people were experiencing. However, what it doesn't really give you a sense of, what that footage doesn't really give you a sense of what it would be like if we had a magnitude 7 on the Hayward Fault right now, while you guys are all sat in this room. And if that was what was to happen, this is what you should expect. Okay, I'm going to play it one more time, and then I want you to describe for me what you're actually seeing happen. All right, what do we see? Yeah. Right, so the building is moving from side to side, and so obviously what we're seeing is the furniture inside the building being relatively stationary compared to the building, right? So the building's moving, and the furniture's kind of sliding backwards and forwards on the floor. Other observations? Yeah. Was it a love wave? Why do you say that? Because it was moving from side to side. Okay, so what we're seeing here is primarily horizontal motion, right? Okay, and so when we talk about horizontal motion, that typically means it's part of either the S wave or the surface waves. The surface waves are broken into two types of wave, a love wave and a ray wave, and it could be one or the other. It's actually difficult to tell with this particular video. What else do people see? Yeah. Right, so the electricity obviously went off partway through the shaking, that's right, so power was lost. What else? Anybody want to estimate the... Sorry, yeah, go ahead. Say that again, sorry? Neither of the people reacted very much. I think there's just one person. I don't know if people didn't notice, there's actually a person, as best I can tell, this person was sleeping down here. This is a TV studio, in case it's not obvious. This is a TV studio, and there was somebody who was sleeping here, who at the end you can see actually starts to react. Let me play it again. Anybody else want to comment on this person and his experience of the earthquake? Yeah. Yeah, took a couple of seconds for him to react, and what happened during those few seconds? Yeah. Right, he was really lucky. Okay, at the very beginning of the video, you see some sort of metal cabinet that falls over here, and it falls down towards him. He's very lucky he didn't land right on top of him. Okay, let me play that again. Okay. Thanks. Big, heavy cabinet like that would do you some serious injury. Anything else? What's the total amount of motion that we're seeing? Can somebody estimate how much the ground is moving? Again? 9? I can't see who's speaking, sorry. Oh, hi. What was it? 9? 9 what? Oh, you're trying to guess the shaking intensity? Ah, okay. That's a good... Shaking intensity 9. Gosh, I'm not sure I can remember the classification well enough to say whether that's correct or not. We'll have to go and look. But what's the total displacement that we're seeing of the ground? Yeah? Say again? 0? And it's moving a lot, right? What do you mean? Wait. Oh, you're saying the permanent displacement is 0. That's possible. We actually don't know. We can't tell from this video. But it's possible the total, as in, you start here and you've gone all the way over here and you come all the way back here and you come back to here. Total displacement is 0. That's possible. But what's the peak-to-peak amplitude of the displacement, I guess is what I'm asking. 4 feet? Yeah, I would say it's about a meter. I'm going to try and use meters. Okay, a meter is about 3 feet. But yeah, so 3 or 4 feet, I think that's probably what we're seeing. So this filing cabinet here, if you watch this filing cabinet, and you can kind of see chairs, so you get some sense of scale, okay? And watch how much this filing cabinet sways backwards and forwards, and that gives you a sense of how much motion it is. So I'll play it one last time. Yeah, so I would say that's a little less than a meter, actually, so maybe 2 to 3 feet is how much it's displaced, okay? All right, so this is what it's like. This is the Kobe earthquake. This is a TV studio in the city of Kobe, fairly close to the fault. So this is typical of what to expect if we have a magnitude 7 somewhere on the Hayward Fault, okay? And so what does this mean for you guys right now if we would have an earthquake? Some of you would probably be thrown over the chair in front of you, okay? That's how strong the shaking would be. That's how violent the shaking would be. Hopefully nobody's under any illusion that you would be able to get up and leave the room. You can't walk during these earthquakes. This is another thing that often causes injuries is people try and get up and leave a room, leave a building, whatever it may be, and just end up being thrown against walls, things falling on top of them. But when shaking like this starts, you do not want to start trying to move around. You want to duck, cover, and hold on. So you need to get down on the floor in front of your seat and get underneath the seat to the best that you can. Okay, any other comments or questions about this footage? Yeah. Right, so this is getting to the love wave suggestion that was made. So what we're not really seeing here is much vertical motion. What we are probably seeing, well, yes, we're definitely seeing the strongest period of shaking. That's why this video clips. This is after the P wave. So the way that energy arrives at the surface for an earthquake is, first of all, the P wave arrives, which is typically relatively low amplitude, but it often feels like a thump, a vertical thump, as if somebody thumped on the bottom of a building. So a sudden thump. If you feel that kind of motion, that's a P wave, and that means that there is stronger shaking coming. Okay? Then when the S wave and the surface waves are all merged together in a continuous wave frame when you're close to an event like this, and that's when you start to feel horizontal motion. Okay? And so exactly which portion of the S wave and the surface waves, it's difficult to determine that from this video. Yeah. So the question is how much time between a P wave and an S wave. That completely depends on how far you are from the earthquake. The P wave and the S wave, they travel at different speeds. We're going to talk about this in a lot more detail in the middle third of the class, but just very briefly, the P wave and the S wave, all of the energy leaves the earthquake fault at exactly the same time. It's just that the P wave energy travels about twice as fast as the S wave energy. So the difference in time between the P wave and the S wave depends upon how far you are away from the epicenter. Okay? Yeah. What kind of motion? So in small to moderate earthquakes, a P wave feels like a punch, like somebody's thumped on the bottom of your building. So you feel like a vertical. It's more of a vertical. There's two things that I mean by this. I'm not sure it's the best description. There's two things. First of all, it's more vertical, right? It's a vertical motion as opposed to what you're seeing here, which is primarily horizontal motion. And second of all, it's higher frequency. So this, you're seeing this filing cabinet sort of swinging backwards and forwards with this kind of time frame, whereas a P wave is much faster, much more rapid shaking. That's why I say it feels like a punch. Yeah. Sorry, say that again. What are the types of forms? Okay, so the question is, the smaller earthquakes feel like thumps. So yes, there were a series of earthquakes in LA in March and April, and the largest one was a magnitude 5.1, the others were kind of magnitude 4. And most people in LA felt them. It was big enough to be felt, but they felt largely like thumps. And so the thump description, I think, is talking about the duration of the shaking. It's kind of, as soon as you feel it, it's essentially over. It doesn't last more than half a second at the most. And that's because it's a smaller magnitude earthquake. Larger magnitude earthquakes, this was a 6.9 earthquake, the shaking goes on for much longer. Okay, last question, yeah. Oh, an audible signal. That's right. People have talked about when there's an earthquake, they hear a sound that sounds kind of like a train or something like that. That's how it's often described. And as for what that is, so there's two things. First of all, when the earthquake energy hits the surface of the Earth, it can actually create a sound wave that travels. But secondly, just as the S-wave energy is approaching, so those ripples, the waves coming across the surface of the Earth, just like you see waves coming across the surface of the ocean, that deformation makes a sound. And so that's the sound that people often hear as well. All right? Okay, let's keep going. So the earthquake just happened. This is best representation, I think, we have of what it would be like for you in this room if we were to have the magnitude 7 earthquake right now. So the shaking would start. You would all know what to do. What would you do? Cover and hold on, get down on the floor beneath the seats, and you would stay there until, that's the hold on part, you would stay there until the shaking stops. Okay? When the shaking stops, then we would leave the building. Even though this is a new building and maybe it would be fine, you really don't want to stay around inside the building because the building may have been partially damaged during the earthquake. And what can we guarantee we're going to have after an earthquake? Aftershocks. Okay? There will always be aftershocks. And so what you want to do once the shaking has stopped is you want to get out of a building and move to a safe place outside. So when we go outside from this particular scenario earthquake, this is the kind of thing that we may find. This is again from the Loma Prieta earthquake. This is the main street of downtown Santa Cruz following the Loma Prieta earthquake. And what you can see is a lot of brick masonry. So a lot of these downtown areas, shopping areas, think Telegraph Avenue, okay, think Shattuck Avenue, and the kinds of buildings that you see along those streets. There's a lot of brick masonry fronts on these buildings. Okay? After this earthquake, the majority of those will have collapsed. All right, the majority of those will have collapsed, will have fallen down into the street, and so this is the kind of scene that you would see on Telegraph Avenue and on Shattuck Avenue. I believe it's true that the university no longer uses any brick masonry buildings. They closed what used to be I think it was the music library over on the other side of campus, which is a masonry building. It's a beautiful building, so it's still standing there, but it's not used for any purposes. Masonry buildings are the worst type of construction to be in. You do not want to live in a brick masonry building. Okay? And what happens is when you have the shaking, these are very brittle. Okay? The cement between the bricks is very brittle. You shake it, and it fractures, and the wall collapses. All right? So when we go outside, there would undoubtedly be damage to some buildings. Hopefully not too much damage to the buildings here on campus. Most of them have been retrofit, not all of them. But then as you go off the margins of campus, where there are a lot of these masonry buildings, this is what you'll find. Okay? When we look at how buildings do fare in these kinds of earthquakes, of course, the intent is to build buildings that can withstand the shaking. Okay, so how good a job are we doing? The good news is that we're doing better. All right?